All right. My name is Benjamin Akwa. I happen to be the co-founder of Code Coast, which is a technology hub in the central region, and also a co-founder of Central Tech Hub, which is also located in Kaswa. I have had the privilege to lead a team of 21 networking startups of a capacity of 5 over the past 2 years, and they are doing quite well. We happen to use Arkesel as a product for one of our clients, and that is how come I got to know Arkesel. Their integration model was quite simplified, so as compared to the other platforms, and this has led us to this meeting today. So I'll be taking you guys through a very brief presentation, and if power enables me or allows me, I would show you a demo, 1 or 2. Okay, so where is this? Please, can you see my screen? Hello.
Yes, Benjamin, we can see it.
Okay. Okay. So first, let's look at the introduction of USSD technology. I would want this presentation to be as relatable as possible. Some of you might have definitely integrated USSD in your applications, whereas some of you might have not, because it is need-based. It's not every product that you're working on that will really need a USSD integration. So what is USSD in its essence? It's an abbreviation, and as this document presents itself, that it says that it's an unstructured supplementary service data as a communication protocol, right? So coming into relative terms traditionally, that it is another communication tool that uses no internet connectivity or less internet connectivity in actual sense to communicate between one device and the other device, or communicating between 2 devices. Yeah. So we would have to look at where USSD differs from SMS technologies and other messaging technologies. This when I was going through the topic, and I remember when I did the first implementation of USSD using other platforms. I had a friend who told me that, hey, I want to build a messaging platform that does not use internet to communicate. And I remember back then, that was about 9 years ago. In fact, we were all naysayers to him that, hey, it was impossible in a way. But we said that to him because we weren't so much abreast with the power of USSD. In fact, USSD has been underestimated because of its need-based use. Yeah, I'll come to the need-based use of USSD actually. So it's a communication tool, as the definition said, and then SMS also happens to be a communication protocol, a communication module as well. The relationship between them is that they all use GSM in communication, right? And they do not use directly internet connectivity to perform their services or render their services. So with the USSD and SMS, hold on a second for me, please. Sorry, guys. Babysitting at the same time, so you have to be pardoning me so that I'll be jumping in and out. Let's do this together. All right. So I was on the USSD and then SMS. That we know that the SMS is a short text message, and then the USSD as well as a definition says. So when it comes to SMS, it takes not so much of a long text. That is about 160 characters in total for SMS. And that is why whenever you want to send a message, I remember back then when smartphones weren't very popular, you would have this young phone and you would want to send a message. When your message is long or a lengthier message, it will be broken into chunks. So you have one of two, one of three. That is depending on how lengthy the message you would want to send or the SMS you would want to send is, because it takes 160 characters only. The SMS can also be sent to individuals or groups, yes, as compared to the USSD. And messages, when it comes to messages, it can be stored on the recipient's device. That's when it comes to SMS. So you have your mobile phone, of course. You have how do we call it? A micro storage on your device internally. That it comes along with it. Somebody sends you an SMS, you can hold the SMS within there. Before we got into this age, devices like Motorola had about, I think, 128 kilobytes. So it can only take a certain number of SMS, and when it is full, it will prompt you that your SMS is full. For that reason, you will need to delete some messages from your device. Yeah. And it can be used for various purposes, right, when it comes to SMS. Likewise, the USSD, it has wide range of use. Just that with USSD, I see USSD more of being a career, right? A specific purpose career than a general purpose when it comes to SMS. Now, with SMS doesn't use short codes to communicate. USSD uses short codes to communicate. Now let's look at the need base. When I say need based for USSD, that is, where does USSD apply? Where does USSD apply? USSD has been there for a very long time. Some of us might have heard of SOAP APIs, REST APIs. USSD was part of the first batch, that is the SOAP APIs back then, right? Using XMLs in its communication or its setup. Yes. So way before we had this tag structures or tag structured implementation for USSD. So you realize that usually whenever there is a scramble on your service provider's network and you dial a short code, you see this scramble, and that comes in raw data form that you see usually an XML format of the data representation of your USSD, right? Yes, because USSD is structured in that manner. It's been around for some time. Use cases that made USSD popular is the banking sector, that is prepaid from our data service providers like MTN, Airtel, Glo, and the rest that we can talk about. That because we buy data from them, or we buy how do we call it? Credit from them. They provide you with a short code for you to dial and use the USSD technology to communicate with their service, and then buy from them, recharge from them. This made USSD very, very popular. Yeah, I'm one of those people that out of these services, I got to know what USSD actually is capable of. And I believe that there are other people who also got to know how powerful USSD is out of this. I wouldn't be doing all the talking, please. I would encourage you that you contribute to some of the use cases. I don't want to be fingering people out. That, hey, give me your input. But yes, so I know you guys might have also experienced, have your own experiences. Now, let me go extra mile talking about use cases. When you are implementing a technology or when you are working on a product, you need to conduct at the early stage of your product development the research that you are required to do. Mostly, we found developers. Personally, I found developers that I've worked with or led not fond of conducting research before development, or because the system has bet it that way. The system has put it up that way. They love coding than doing the paperwork. So if you go through the paperwork before development, you realize that you need to conduct research. The scope of the product or the scope of the project that the client has brought will determine. Some clients are privy to some of this information, so they come with some predetermined requirements. So you know what to deliver when it comes to them. And there are clients that are not tech savvy. They have an idea or they have a problem. They come to you, they submit a document to you that this is what I want for this particular solution. Give me what you think would best fit, right? So when a client comes to you with that blank sheet, you are required to conduct a need assessment as part of your product development research in the early stages. So this need assessment can take you that far. For example, we built this platform. Let me see if I could share quickly. Land Identify. So we built a technology called Land Identify. I'm putting the link in the chats. Where is the chat? Sorry, let me switch my screen so that you can see I've opened this. Great. So we built this technology, very simple technology that we worked on. I remember the client came to us that, hey, we have litigation issues, right, on our land. It was a family land, very big family land that has now become Kaswa, right? And we all know how popular Kaswa is in the news for so many bad reasons, right? And this traditional group of people came to our office that this is our issue. We have shootouts taking place on our land, land dispute here and there. The Lands Commission has implemented something that can help people go there and check for the validity or availability of a land for purchase or repurchase, right? Land ownership and all of that at the Land Commission level. But the actual land litigation problem happens at the traditional level, because you would buy a land before you go and perform all those research and then find out. Sometimes by the time the client or the buyer who is buying the land gets to Lands Commission to check, he might have already made some commitment. And you know, we all know, for those of us who have gone through some of these things before, realize that when you pay some money, getting it back is very difficult. So these guys came to us because it has given them a bad reputation, right? And they wanted a mobile app and a web app And we sat down with them and we broke the whole problem down. And we realized that actually you don't need a mobile app, you don't need a web app, you need an admin dashboard just to upload your site plan, your master plan, and then you need a USSD technology. That is all you need, because they wanted people who buy their lands to be able to dial a short code and enter a unique 4-digit PIN that is given to them after their lands are registered. And a QR code is generated for every land that is registered. As soon as you dial that short code, you get all the information about your land, who sold the land to you, the surveyor that worked on the land, the size of the land, the location of the land, and the current owner of the land, how much you bought the land for. All of this information is provided via USSD, of which, of course, you don't need a mobile app to do that. All you need is a USSD to do that. So need-based, custom need-based like this must be done. So USSD, in actual sense, goes a very long way to serve some of these critical problems that we have in our societies. Yes. And we just finished with the platform. Whilst we were piloting, we could see, we did a presentation, and beautifully they dialed their short code and they get the information whether the person is within the country or not. You can just phone in somebody, oh, check this particular land for me, if it's available. As soon as they dial the short code, they get a URL, and then they can even click the URL to check the QR code in the URL, scan it, and then it shows them the location, the geographical location of their lands, right? So that is how far, if you perform proper needs assessment on your projects or your product that you are developing, you can find a place for USSD. You can find a place for USSD. One of the greatest product that is serving our telcos is USSD, right? How many of us use MTN app for mobile money or MTN app for buying credit, right? The interfaces are not intuitive, right? So many processes you have to go through to buy data, to buy credit, right? But with USSD, very simplified, and irrespective whether you have network data or no data, I mean data, internet data or no data, you can still use your USSD and go free. Yes, that is how far it goes when it comes to need-based use for it. Banks are using it, telcos are using it for recharge and all of that. It also provides real-time interaction with responses as well. And you can decide to store data on the device. That one, it is up to you. So there is that capability. There is that capability that you can customize the service to also perform that service. When the data, when the action is sent or the request is sent. However, whatever the callback sends to you, you can decide what to do with the data you receive backwards. Okay, so the basic components of USSD, that is the gateway, the USSD gateway and service center, the USSD code and menus, the interaction flow between the user's device, and then the USSD service. So with this, I would have loved to show you, let me see, quickly, show you quickly what we have here. Great. Pardon me. I'm on standby power, so I'm trying to skim through very fast before power goes off. Okay. All right. All right. So I wanted to. I have my code editor opened. I'm going to share it with you in a minute, and then run you through some of the code that I implemented for this. Now, when it comes to USSD, right, it is not asynchronous, right? It is synchronous. So you can't do two things at the same time when it comes to USSD. It's kind of a waterfall model. So a waterfall is an architecture that is cascading, right? It means that you have, when you have a data coming through from the top, from point A, the data must go, before the data must, if the data's destination is D, the data must go through B before it goes through C, and then it goes to D, right? So it is cascading in that sense, and that is the waterfall model. So anytime you see, whenever you want to buy credit, you dial the short code, you have the menu, you can't skip anything to another page, right? And perform maybe two things at the same time on that page. No, that is not how it works, because whatever you see there is static. Whatever you see on the menu is static. It operates with a callback URL. So the menu is presented to you. It takes in a static data. It shows you a static data. It shows you it takes a fixed input from you, and then it sends that input, fixed input, to a request, takes that request, and then goes into the code to check what next it must do, right? Good. So if you are going to be communicating your USSD with a database like MongoDB, like I have done in this code. Oh, sorry, I haven't shared, and I'm talking about it. Where is it? Good. Did you see my editor?
Yes, we can.
Sorry. Okay, so here I'm point. I know that a USSD request lifetime, the TTL for it is probably not more than, I don't wait for anything more than 5 seconds to between 5 seconds to 10 seconds, right? But even though I'm communicating with the database, I make sure the database is as light as possible. Nothing so much from there. The data I'm requesting for shouldn't be more than a certain size. For example, it shouldn't be more than maybe 2 KB in that sense. So it will be lighter and faster. But I need that a synchronous request within that millisecond to perform, even though I know that the USSD flows in a waterfall approach, right, in a cascade manner. So I implemented this menu. So I initialized my USSD from this particular page, requesting for a 6-digit code.
Hello, Benjamin. Sorry to cut you short. People are asking if you could increase the test size so they could read your screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is it okay?
I think it's fine now.
Sure. All right. So what I do here is first I take in the phone number that comes in, and the phone number comes from this MSI SIDN variable. So I just deconstruct the body that is coming through. I can share this source code with you right after this in a Git repo. It's very simple to implement. You can look onto it and do the implementation. Arkesel also has a GitHub repository you can look at. It has this similar implementation. I just look at what they implemented. It's very, very simple to adapt to. So I will share it as well, and then you can flow through it. So I take the phone number from the MSI SDN and check the validity of the phone number so that I don't encounter any phone number error. Then I check for the session. If the session is available, that is a valid session or not. If it's not, then I would have to request for a session, a new session, right? Good. So in this session, I'm requesting for a 6-digit PIN from my user. And this is my menu. And you could see that this is static. This is static. The menu is static. It is not coming from the database because USSD does not have that ample time to wait. If I'm going to perform any activity in the database, my USSD menu cannot wait for my database operations before it presents. So all that I will do is that, okay, I want to fetch the LAN information from this 6-digit PIN. I take the 6-digit PIN, I send it through the database, right? This menu goes to them first. They select what they want to do, and then I take the 6-digit PIN from them. If I take the 6-digit PIN, I've already shown them what I need to show them and tell them that whatever you would want is being processed. Then I send it over to the database for processing. Then after that request is returned, it has nothing to do with the USSD any longer. All I need to do is send it via SMS. Whatever response I received, I send it via SMS. So let's go through the levels of menu that I have here for you to understand the reason why I use an async. I use the async because I'm doing the database request here. I'm doing the database request here. And I don't need the database request before I present the menu. If I take the 6-digit PIN, I send it, I check the phone number if it exists. If it doesn't exist, probably I do whatever I need to do. It is up to you to determine whatever you want to do in your database. But whenever you are performing an activity in your database, make sure that it is not tightly coupled with your USSD. It should be loosely coupled. It should be loosely coupled. So I do have this first menu here. That is my level 1. Ask them, welcome to the Pompey of Calls to Lands. And this is my first item on the menu. Second item on the menu, that is, what do you want to do? Maybe Office of the Land Administration or Office of the Market Queen Mother. That is one part of the USSDs for toll collection in the market, and the other part is for land verification. So if you want land verification, you select one. If you select 2, you go for the toll collection. That is, if you want to make payments, right? Good. So I keep track of the USSD state of the user and their session. This is level 1, and then I have only page 1 here. So at this particular point, you know that the only database request I'm doing here is the phone number verification. That is all. And then whatever is left here is static. I just take this 6-digit PIN at level 1 from this menu. Then I check from here what the user selected, right? So if the user selected, whatever the user selected from here, from level 1, I send the person another static menu, right? So depending on what you selected from here. So if you selected 1, land administration, obviously, yes, we'll ask you to either pay for your land verification, or you want to check, you've already paid, but you want to check whether the land you paid for, the data is still intact, or the information about it hasn't changed or has changed in that sense. So that is from the option 1. Option 2, I present you with another static menu. So you could see that here it is everything that I need to present is synchronous, it is static. And I take from level 1, the response I receive will determine what I show you statically. So I can't skip level 1 and go to level 2. No. I need to go with that flow and then make sure that I present it as it is statically. And I still keep track of it here. The flow I have here is not sequential. I had so many activities. You could see that there were a lot of menu activities in there per the client request. So a lot of menu activities. I'll share the code. This code doesn't contain any sensitive information. So I can share it with you, and then you can take some clues from it, right? So you could see that here I have level 5. It means that whatever the response is here, I would use that response at level 5, right? So here I'm checking for level 2. So if we go to level 5, good. If we go to level 5, you see payment for the land is here. Payment for the land is here. It's because I put in at level 2, I indicated that I indicated the level where I would need to use that particular session. I indicated the level that I would need to use that particular session. So just this particular object would be enough for you to track your USSD activities and where you would want to use what data response or what data request that you are receiving, at what level and at what page. You are able to also track the network, what network the person is making the request with, whether it's MTN, Vodafone, or whatever. You can get to know that. And then this particular user data is the response that you get from the user. If the user enters 1, that is going to be user data. If the user enters 2, that is going to be user data. Right? And this level, I've talked about it. This user ID and session, you use it when you want to track the activeness of the session. You realize that when a USSD stays on screen for about, inactive on screen for about 30 seconds, it expires. Right? Yes, that is the session in question here. So this particular object is very essential for you to use to track your USSD activities and where you would want to use your USSD data as well. So USSD code and menus here being part of the basic USSD component or basic component of your USSD, you should have it in mind that this is how it looks like in actual sense or in code. This is how it looks like in actual sense in code. The menus are static. It is synchronous. If you want to perform any asynchronous activity, make sure that it is not tightly coupled with your menu. Make sure it is loosely coupled. It's standalone. Perform whatever you need to perform on the server side. If you want to send an email, perform it on the server side. Do whatever you want to do. Make sure it is not dependent. Otherwise, you'll be frustrated. You would have to keep on waiting for the request to finish before it can return a menu or the menu for you, which is never going to happen. USSD does not have that time. It doesn't use network internet to operate. It doesn't have that time. Okay, let's continue. Did you have my screen?
Benjamin, we have a white screen here.
Oh. Do you have my screen?
We're still showing white here.
Is it? Okay. Okay. So now you have my PowerPoint, right? Okay, thank you. So,
Yeah, we have that.
So back to the session-based communication, that is on our page 3. That is understanding the concept of the USSD sessions. You should know that the USSD sessions works in a particular way. That is, you would have to understand that it is responsible for the initiation of the USSD application itself. It is responsible for the requests, the USSD requests. When you dial a short code, the mobile device will send a request, right? The request message to the network operator. You see, the session contains the short code as well. So in actual sense, you would without the session, the USSD cannot operate. You need that to initiate and then make a request. And as you even send a request, the processing and response and display of the USSD itself, in fact, is highly dependent on your USSD session. You realize that in the code, I had when I distracted the distraction you saw there, that it looks like I had an object. I had the user data, I had a level, I had a session. I had to destructure all of that, right? From the session. Without the session, I cannot have anything. The beginning of the code, before I got the phone number, I have to get it from the body. And the body, it is the session that can provide that. Okay. Your session will also be responsible for the termination. The code, I'll share the code. You see how the termination option in the code is, right? Yeah, the session also helps you terminate it. You have to de-initialize. So long as there was an initialization, you have to use the session as well. The session is also responsible for de-initializing the application. That's Real-time interactive communication without the need of internet connectivity. That is USSD. I've already talked about that. Obviously, yes, the first thing or the first advantage of USSD whenever it comes in mind is that wherever you go, you can use it. So long as you have a GSM network, you can operate your USSD. It is menu-driven interaction. It's highly dependent on menu-driven interaction. Somebody will say a menu-driven architecture. That is USSD for you. We've explained that in the code we looked at, that you have a menu which is static, how the USSD menus are structured for user engagement. You saw that in there, right? I'll share the code. I keep on saying that. Navigating through the USSD, I mentioned that you have to use your level and the page to track your navigation, right? And you get all of that from your session. Okay. Speed and responsiveness. Yes. Instantaneous response times in USSD interaction. You see, with USSD, it is very fast because no internet, no waiting time. But your USSD can be very slow. If there's going to be latency in your USSD, it means that you are performing so many activities, either statically or you are trying to make a synchronous request, which you think you can beat time in milliseconds. Well, if you can optimize your code very well, right? You can cache your data from the database, right? Using any third-party caching library, right? In the code I'll share with you, I'm caching in there. So you can use a caching library. A caching library is basically an application that can help you store information locally, right? On your server or in a session. It could be Realm data objects. For example, when you are working on mobile, Realm database is there. SQL is there. If you're on the server, Redis is there. So there are so many third-party caching applications that you can use, so that you wouldn't have to go to your server to make requests all the time synchronously. So for the first time, whenever when somebody makes or when you build a USSD application, and you would have to make a database request, you can make just a one-time request to your database and then store that object locally in your cache. And that cache will hold that object, helping you so that anytime in that same session, right, another request is made, you wouldn't need to go to the database and then make a request again, which will encourage or which would enforce that instantaneous response for you. So you realize that MTN has this option. You have to check for your, how do we call it? You have to check for your airtime balance. You have to check for your Momo balance, right? Of course, that object is cached for you. So anytime you make that request, it goes into your cache and ID is attached to it. So it goes into it and then fetch it. It could be a big object, so long as it is cached locally in that particular session. It's treated as though it lives within the same environment with it. So accessibility to that object is there. The reason why USSD is always instantaneous, gives instantaneous response, is because whatever data that it presents or shows to you in your menu is static. It's static in a sense that it lives within the environment of the session. The menu you saw in the code lives within the session. It doesn't need to leave the session, go elsewhere inside an external database and go and fetch the data. That is alien to the session. So localize your object by caching your object. You localize your object by caching your object so that you can make a request to your cache repository and fetch objects from your cache repository, return it instantaneously. And that is how you minimize latency for seamless user experience. That is how you reduce latency for a seamless user experience. Yes. Yes. Okay. So how USSD sessions are maintained during interaction? So you would have to track the states. So you have to understand the statelessness of the statefulness of every session, right? That's the state of every session, and the context of every session. The context simply means what each session contains, what can be found within each session object, right? And if you go into every session, each session provides you with all the environment objects or variables you need to proceed to the next page or to make any request. So you need to know all of these variables in there. You need to know all the variables in there. That is, for example, the session ID, you would need to keep track of it. For continuity, you need to track the level of the page that is being presented, right? Or of the session that is being presented. Yeah. Of the session that is being presented. So we would have to also consider the temporal interactivity of your sessions. And also you need to put into consideration the duration of every request that you make. That's the session context in question. We've talked about the application of USSD technology, the financial services. I've talked about that. These are very relative to us. And I don't think it only applies to this. So you can always find a means to implement USSD technology. Always. We've been disadvantaged in this ecosystem because we've been confined to mobile applications and web applications. And we have not been maybe I would have to put it the right way, that maybe we've not been given the opportunity or disciplined ourselves well enough to probe into the scope of project that we work on. And also we be given the opportunity within teams, right, to suggest some of these things. There are cliches out there about USSD that needs to be demystified. That USSD is quite archaic. Yes, you find most developers putting that out there. That USSD is quite archaic. It is primitive. Yes, because they consider SOAP APIs and they put USSD in the context or the space of SOAP APIs. That, for that reason, limiting the application of USSD in our modern age. You can always, in most of the applications we build. In fact, most of the web applications and mobile applications we build for solutions, they fail because they are not that type of solutions, or they are not the kind of solutions we need for those problems. Yes, you build a solution that are going to be used in remote locations that do not have good internet connectivity or no internet connections at all, and you expect it to thrive, especially survey-based applications. I remember this. There was a company that is a very big company in Ghana that does. They were responsible for household data collection and funds are allocated. If I mention the name, most of you will know that company. They used to be around Circle at Busy Internet, and in fact, working with them for a period of time, saw that they were a survey company, and they were provided with government contracts, and they were using mobile applications for a remote-based service. And in fact, it was very frustrating. It did not see the light of the day, and at the end of the day, they had to spend another bunch of money from that same government budget to build a USSD application to replace the mobile and web applications that their task force or their volunteers were using on the field, collecting data from families and also sending funds to families, right? In fact, we can always find a tangible, useful means to implement USSD applications. So all of this page talks about application of USSD technology, skimming through, that is checking balances, purchasing tokens, reporting issues, enhancing user experience in utility interaction. That's customer support and feedback, USSD for issue reporting. In fact, we are currently using the USSD technology in one of our big applications that we ever built in our company. And we are using it for customer support feedback. And we realize that, in fact, it's amazing. In fact, it is really, really, really amazing. For me, I used to get very frustrated calling MTN, for example, having an issue, or calling a help desk at night, and I don't get any feedback from them. So in instances where a developer might not have the capacity to implement an AI bot, right? You can have a policy bot. A policy bot is simply a static list of policies, right? That you set a questionnaire. That's your FAQs. You convert them into policies. Most of frequently asked questions in your business or your product, you list them out, and you create an array of questions or an array of keywords, right? And this array of keywords are connected to your policy array. So in that sense, what we do is that anytime a user dials our short code, what we do, we present the user with a list of frequently asked questions. He just selects one of those questions, and we return the response to the user via SMS. So all we do is just take your question that you have in your frequently asked questions that you select from the USSD menu, and we take that ID from you, send it through that cache or database. If we find the response for you, we return it to you via SMS. And it is very, 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 very functional. It's amazing, right? Currently, we are testing internally, and it's awesome. I will entreat you to look at some of these simplified use cases. The use case of USSD shouldn't always be external. Shouldn't be external. And it has saved us hiring somebody to sit behind a desk with a headphone and then asking us for data all the time or credit all the time to call people, or people calling him for. It doesn't really take away that, but it reduces that cost for us. All right. So challenges and considerations: security measures, authentication and data protection in USSD interaction, addressing potential security risk and best practices. So yes, so for me, I will encourage you to use any encryption library of your choice to encrypt your data, right? So usually your request headers are very important to protect whenever you're making a request, right? Because the USSD transports through a communication protocol. Just encrypt your request headers and make sure that your request headers are not sending any sensitive data from the source, right, of the request. The source of your request is your mobile, right? And sometimes your request headers can pick up other sensitive information from your device where you are not aware. So try to encrypt or filter your request headers as much as possible, or as well as you can, right? And when the data gets into your session area, you can decrypt it and perform whatever activity you would want to perform with it, and then return your menu or return the response to the user, right? Good. So that is one of the ways, or some of the ways that you can ensure maximum security on making requests. Good. Accessibility, ensuring inclusivity for users with diverse needs. Yeah, I think we covered this as well. Making sure that you put into consideration, right, in your targeted audience when you are planning for a product or planning for development of USSD. Consider who are the people that are going to be using the USSD. You don't need to make the sequence of a USSD so long, so lengthy, right? You start one particular process. In fact, quite boring. You answer one particular question, another question comes up, select 2 for this, select 3 for that. Quite boring. And for example, if the market, the toll collection USSD, for example, it is just a 2-step application to collect fund. That's all. If I want to pay money to you and your USSD menu requires about 4 steps or 5 steps before I can make payment, of course, I will abandon SHIP. I will abandon SHIP immediately. And we need to make sure that we consider the users who will be using our application as well. Make sure that it is intuitive well enough. The adaptability of the application is there for the user to go through. It shouldn't be frustrating, easy to understand. The question on there should be short, summarized, and precise, straight to the point, because USSD does not encourage lengthy tests. It does not encourage lengthy tests. Designing USSD interface. Sorry, somebody. Is it here? Sorry. Okay. Designing USSD interfaces for maximum accessibility, simple to navigate mobile menus. Yeah, so we've covered that as well. Integration with backend systems, seamless integration with existing database and services, some best practices for handling data between USSD and backend systems. I've talked about it. That makes sure that your backend integration, whenever you're integrating network calls on your USSD, make sure they are loosely coupled, totally loosely coupled. Make sure they are not tightly coupled or highly dependent on your USSD request, right? And use caching libraries to cache objects from network requests, store them in your sessions, and reuse them in your sessions. When the session is over, the cache becomes empty. Anytime the session begins, the cache is filled with the request from the database, and you reuse your cache. So that is how you can ensure that that seamlessness is there, that prompt response is there, right? Otherwise, your USSD will fail, because the USSD cannot wait for network calls all the time. It will fail. To fail. That I can assure you. Okay, I think at this point I will encourage some questions. Thank God we have lights now. So I'll encourage some questions.
Okay, so anyone with a question could just have their hand emote with their
Caleb
hand raised, and then I can unmute them.
I think
So
we have
Desmond, you can go on.
Okay, so thanks a lot for the presentation, Arkesel and Code Coast. We are very grateful for this chance. So let's see, as a dev, if I want to experiment this USSD application, am I allowed for demo versions? And also, I also want to say, let's say, if a business contacts me and they are a small business, as you are saying, SMEs, and they want to implement this in their operations, how expensive is it? Is it something that per every request there's a huge silly charge attached to it, or is just basic cost that they have to incur? Thanks a lot.
I think your network was breaking, so your last comment.
Okay,
I missed you on your last comment. Yeah.
Sorry. So my last question was, let's say an SME contacts you and they want to implement this software system as part of the operations. Are they going to incur a lot of cost, or actually it's just not that expensive and people don't know about it? Thank you. I believe those are my two questions. So the demo and the SME question. Thank you.
Solid. In fact, USSD is like serverless applications, right? In a particular way, USSD is serverless and it is cheap. Cheap, in fact, cheap. I repeat, it is cheaper than you deploying your service to AWS. Being charged service fee for a startup. In fact, as a young person or as a young developer who want to start something for yourself, I will encourage USSD for you to start with. For example, an SME might come to you. Let me draw your attention to this. Nowadays, if you go to most of our fuel stations, you see that, and most of our retail shops, so there is this short code, lengthy short code that says maybe star 234 star 578 star, then put the amount there in hash, and then you make payment, right? It's somebody's idea. It's somebody's idea. He doesn't need to build any mobile application, web application, huge application, deploy it to the server, get a marketing team and a whole lot. No. He just sat down, saw a particular loophole. How simple or how cheap can I solve this problem? Problem solving must not always be expensive. It must not always be expensive. So USSD does not sit on, building a USSD does not sit on some huge external server. In fact, you wouldn't need to use so much of a server resource. You might, servers usually, AWS will give you 500 megabytes free. I don't know, what's the name? MongoDB gives you 500 megabytes or 300 megabytes free for free, right? And if you're using USSD, you only need a database when you need it. It is on request. That is when you need it, right? So you wouldn't need so much to sit in your database that it will fill up your database in the shortest possible of time. No. All you need is a brilliant idea, make it cheap, make the solution to those ideas cheap, and inculcate your USSD technology in there. There are so many places you can implement, and it is very kind of you to mention these small scale enterprises. They need this. They cannot afford mobile applications. They cannot afford web applications. They can afford USSD. Arkesel has so many packages. 300. They have a 300 CD package for you. You can get a short code from them, and their documentation is seamless. They have how do we call it? They have an emulator, and they have, I'll share the source code. I'll share the source code that I presented to you guys. Just go through it, and I will leave my email with you. I will leave my phone number, my WhatsApp number. If any of you maybe need assistance on implementation of the Arkesel APIs, I have my team of developers available. They can help you guys anytime, any day. They can help you guys. So just find a brilliant idea. If you're a team of 2 or yourself, you want to do something, just go through it. And you can come up with it. You don't need to spend much. Just pay 300 Ghana cedis to Arkesel. You have a short code. Provide them with your callback URL, plug it in, and you are good to go. Desmond, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I believe that answers my question very well. Thank you very much. Yes.
Welcome. Who else? I think I have someone else has his hand raised.
Joshua, you should be able to speak now.
Joshua, I think maybe he's on. Okay, yeah, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm not on mute. Thank you for the presentation. Well done. I think I have one thing to say, right? So last year I implemented USSD for a client who is doing micro banking, what we call SUSU. It was quite cheaper getting the USSD from a provider, right? But I think 2 weeks, a week ago, yes, when I want to do something with USSD, when I check the prices, I mean, everything has skyrocketed. So it becomes discouraging because, yes, so look at maybe a local church wants to use USSD for maybe some kind of information collection, and then they have to pay Arkesel 300 Ghana cedi for 3 GB short code per month. I mean, 300 Ghana per month will be expensive for them when you talk to them about it. So I mean, my core is for us to do something about it. I mean, if maybe a yearly payment and then maybe session, that could be better. But a monthly of 300 per month, I mean, I feel like it's too much. It's discouraging.
Okay, so
yes.
Let me speak to this. I would probably maybe let me speak to this. You see, when it comes to startups in Ghana, the ecosystem is very harsh. The ecosystem is very, very, very harsh. That's you will always be alone, and you have to fund yourself. The business must fund itself, right? I'm a developer and an entrepreneur as well. So it's like I can feel your pain and I can feel the pain of Arkesel as well. That's Arkesel has 300 Ghana cedis tier package. Then it goes up. There are probably tangible reasons why it will surely go up. But even as much as it has gone up, it's cheaper than running mobile application, a web application, and then deploying a database on a service. Altogether, Arkesel or USSD still remains cheaper than that particular platform. Totally. You see, I think what you are advocating for from Arkesel is Arkesel providing a subsidized tier for startups. Maybe your first 3 months or your first 90 days in business, Arkesel provides you with a particular package. Not that you will not pay, you would pay, but the package is subsidized. Then after maybe your 90 days, you are presumed or assumed to have have your loins girdled. So you would be able to afford 300 Ghana cedis. So let me put this across, that when my team built the toll collection for the market's Queen Mother and the assembly for toll collection, the first 2 months they were testing, right? But we were still paying the 300 cedis to Arkesel. But for us, because we are a company and we might have funds in our funds to sustain it, we will. But an individual, maybe Joshua or Joshua's client, might not be willing or might not be able to afford that 300 Ghana cedis without getting any value from it at that particular stage, even though in the long run there will be value, right? So what we want, or what maybe Joshua would be advocating for, is that Arkesel would find a way to set up a package for maybe a 90-day or 60 days package for startups, so that startups can create value with the USSD code for their clients. When the value is realized by their clients, then after the 90 days or 60 days, they can now resume on a normal subscription tier. I hope, Joshua, I have made justice to your worry.
Yes, I think so. I think they should set a USSD code and give a session to buy instead of paying 300 per month. Sometimes we don't even use the session.
Well, anyway, I think they are listening to you, so surely they will take some of this into consideration. I think Desmond's hand is still up.
Yeah, good evening once again. So my final question will be, you spoke about there has to be a GSM connection for the USSD to work. And per my knowledge, this can be wrong anyway. The GSM maybe service, I think, is being provided by telcos. Or I'm lying.
Yes, so if you don't have a network, if you don't have network on your phone, you will not be able to access you'll not be able to use your USSD.
Okay, so
That
with
is
that, doesn't it come with a charge, or MTN and the rest, they've made it free that it doesn't matter?
So for that, you are not responsible for that. So whatever happens, it's between Arkesel and their service providers.
Okay.
All you, the developer, what you are thinking about is, okay, accessibility, right? And what kind of accessibility would USSD provide me? USSD does not need, only needs network availability from a telco to work, not maybe internet per se, just the network availability to work, irrespective whether it's a smartphone or a YAM phone, provided there is network in a typical village, it still works, right? That is what you, the developer, you think about or you consider. It is the responsibility of Arkesel to think about that charges or whatever policy they have between themselves and their service providers.
Okay. I believe that answers my questions perfectly. Thanks a lot.
Welcome. Kindly ask questions. In fact, this is a platform where probably I get to also help answer some questions. If you have a startup USSD where you want to apply it, having challenges with applying it, let me know. Maybe my tech team can help you out.
Okay, so guys, in case sorry, so guys, in case you have any question, just raise your hand and I would unmute. I would disable the microphone so that you can feel free to bring your microphone. Right? So please, I think someone's Chrissy's hand is up. Please go ahead with your question. Thank you.
Hello, Chrissy. If you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Chrissy, I think you're on mute.
Okay, is it possible you type your input in the chat so that we can read it out?
You can post your question in the chat. Yeah.
Yes. I remember what I wanted.
Joshua is still up for some questions.
Yes. I wanted to maybe, I don't know whether I should say I'm requesting for a feature from Arkesel, because last time I was scouting how to get the remaining sections that I have through an API. I know there is an API for my balances from Arkesel, but the USSD session were not part. So I think I was chatting, but I was not getting the answers I want. So I just forget it. But I think if it can be implemented, it is really needed, so that though you may get an email that your sessions are, but we want to know how it is being used. Like, okay, in the last 2 hours, we were able to use, 500 sessions. So if they can release an API that will give us the amount of session we have, I think that would be nice.
Yeah, I think this goes to Arkesel, so probably maybe you would have to speak to this.
Yeah, it has been noted. So, Chrissy, we're still waiting for your input in the chat.
Okay. Hello. Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my question had to do that I plan to use this. I'm a junior developer, by the way. I haven't ever used implemented the USSD before, but I plan to use it for a payment system. What I want to know is that after writing all the codes, just like the status code he just showed, at the final end, I know that the system, this USSD is supposed to send a request to the user for the user to pay the stipulated amount. Does this Axel's USSD does that?
I don't get you.
I think I get a question. So I think he was trying to mean in mobile money payment, right? Where you request for the payment and you get a prompt on your phone. He wants to know if the USSD does something like that, so that he can request for a prompt to pop up on his phone instead of dialing the short code. I think that's what he's trying to ask.
Oh, so what you will do is that that is a separate that is payments setup. Let's say you are using Momo API, MT Momo API. You would have to write the Momo API request to pay, right? Method for request to pay. Then you ask your USSD user, right, to go through the process of payment. So that is go through your menu. So let's say he enters his phone number, or maybe he selects an option 1 to pay, or he enters an amount to pay. You take that amount and you send that amount to the request to pay option, your request to pay method for whether you are using Paystack or you are using Express Pay, their APIs. That is separate from Arkesel. So with Arkesel, all that it is providing for you is it is providing you with your instruction flow, the flow for your instructions to get the user to that payment destination. Now, after you've collected all the information you want to use for payment, send it to Paystack. And then return to the user and tell the user that payment is being processed. As soon as the payment is successful, how do we call them? Paystack receives it. Maybe MTN mobile money will send a prompt. So the MTN Momo prompt is not associated with how do we call them? How do we call it? Arkesel's payment, Arkesel's USSD prompt. They are two separate prompts. They're using Arkesel to collect the information you need to collect, send it to MTN Momo, and then they will take it, process it, return a prompt for confirmation. When the confirmation is done, the person receives an SMS that the payment is successful.
Okay, my question is answered. Thank you. I get it now. Thank you.
Okay.
So Ben, please let me add up to this one, right? So you mean that a USSD cannot be used to request for prompts, whatever the case? Maybe it's not for payment system that you have an external API to call to request for a prompt. Maybe you want to do something and then request the prompt on the user's device. It means the USSD cannot do that, or that part is not given out.
Come again.
Okay, so maybe it's not a payment system, but you want to view an application that will automatically request for prompts on the user's device. Does that mean the USSD cannot do that, right?
USSD, yeah, you can request for prompt. So prompt as in what? Prompt as in having that USSD instruction prompt interface coming to you. Yes, that is what the menu is for. You can request for a prompt where the person can enter information in a prompt input field. You can request for prompt for a menu display. You take the user's response and then you process it. If it's going to be a synchronous processing, send it for a synchronous processing. But for you, return back to your synchronous flow for USSD. Return to that synchronous flow for USSD by showing the prompt. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, so I think if I want to clarify, he's saying that instead of a user dialing or initiating the USSD session, just as like I would dial *928/*1#. So instead of doing that, probably a system somewhere would just pop up a prompt on my device, even though I haven't typed anything in my keypad, just like the way MTN Momo could do.
Oh, okay. So,
so with Arkesel's gateway, we don't do the forward push. So it's more or less like the user has to initiate it first. I mean, for now, we've tried working on trying to get permission to use the other one that allows you to initiate the prompt, but then we haven't been granted that as I said. It's still in the work, it's still in the pipeline, and then I think if we're able to get that permission, we would roll it out to some developers. But it's very sensitive, that is why it's not open. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, if I got you right, the question really meant that that is the automatic prompt that comes up without user's initiation.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think what the solution has been, the response to your question actually answers it, whoever asked that question.
Yes, Joshua, your hand is still up. Do you have any more questions? Because if there are any more questions, you could also type them in the chat so that we take them quickly, since you're on time now.
All right. I think the questions are not coming in so much. I think on the chats, those that are showing thumbs up for the monthly subscription fee, probably maybe Arkesel will take a look at that in future. All right. Anyway, feel free. This is my my WhatsApp number.
Ben, if I may ask, could you have it on the screen as well for us?
The WhatsApp number?
Your contact details here.
All right, sure. Feel free. We have a junior developer school coming up. That is in May. We are hoping to have a virtual session. Good. So we are hoping to have a virtual session for young developers to come through. We have a co-working space, in fact, a beautiful one in Kaswa, very spacious, and we encourage young people to come in and learn. Most of our programs are sponsored. Some of them are paid programs. We have the foundation school, we have the junior developer school, we have the we have the mid-level developer school, but we don't have senior developer school. We rather have senior developer mentorship sessions, because we believe that becoming a senior developer is not by sitting in a classroom or sitting in a boot camp. It comes by grinding and going through the right process of mentorship. And some of these areas of USSD coverages are covered under the Junior Developer School. I think when we implemented our USSDs, they were done by the junior developers within the team. And it was quite interesting seeing them implement some of these things. So I must really confess that there are other USSD platforms and their documentations, but Arkesel, your documentation is very straightforward and simple. Very, very, very simple. Yeah. So the implementation you saw was done by a junior developer, and you can see how simple it was. We just had to take him through once, and he was able to implement it. So easy for him to do that. Yeah. So guys, consider my phone number and then my email. Feel free if you need any help. We have a team of 21 developers who can help you anytime, any day. Just don't call them in the morning at 8. By then, they'll be sleeping.
Okay, Benjamin, it says there was a typo in the phone number.
Two, 4, 0. Okay. Sorry. So that's it. That's the phone number. Feel free. Being a backend developer, front-end developer, mobile developer, native, data science, machine learning, any of them, just feel free and reach out. Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. Please, I hope you can hear me. Thank you so much, Mr. Benjamin. And I really appreciate everything you have done for us so far. And to everyone on the call, thank you so much for your time. So like Mr. Benjamin said, please feel free to reach out to him anytime for any thing you are interested in with respect to what we just discussed. Next month, we'll be having another session. So tell a friend to tell a friend and keep in touch with all our social media pages. Once we are ready to go live, you will be the first to be notified. This session has been recorded and it will be sent to our YouTube page. So I will send you an email to let you know that the session has been uploaded. So please, thank you once again and have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your night.
All right.